For 75 years, the Iron Brotherhood has served as the diplomatic anchor of South Asia, a mutual defense and economic pact between Pakistan and China. But the grinding war between the US and Iran is fracturing those traditional ties. With energy prices soaring and supply chains choking, now Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif is desperately seeking a way out. Sharif is looking toward Beijing for relief, but the actual resolution of this war is being negotiated thousands of miles away in the diplomatic backchannels of the Gulf. As regional diplomacy fails, global powers are being forced to rewrite their standard playbooks just to keep their economies functional. In Doha, Qatar, negotiators were reportedly hours away from finalizing a US-Iran ceasefire and reopening the Strait of Hormuz to global shipping. Then, Donald Trump issued a sudden demand on Truth Social, adding a massive new precondition for any peace deal to move forward. He announced that Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Pakistan, Turkey, Egypt, and Jordan must mandatorily sign the Abraham Accords, the US-brokered agreement to normalize diplomatic relations with Israel. Trump even included the prospect of bringing Iran into the accords itself, once a final agreement is reached with the United States. When the US president issued this demand over a conference call to the region's leaders, the line reportedly went silent. Trump had to ask if they were still there. By attaching Israeli normalization to a hot war ceasefire, the bilateral negotiation to stop the shooting becomes an ultimatum for the diplomatic realignment of the entire region. For decades, the red line for these nations has been the 2002 Arab Peace Initiative, which demands a Palestinian state before any recognition of Israel. Economic pressure pushes against that red line. A ceasefire would immediately reopen the Strait of Hormuz to global energy. Trump's proposal promises to transform the Gulf into a unified economic zone, connecting these markets to Western trade routes as soon as the signatures are dry. This leaves Arab leaders with a choice: abandon their historical red lines and face domestic fury, or reject the deal and lose critical American security and economic support. This ultimatum forces regional powers to calculate the exact price of their ideological commitments against their economic survival. The pressure isn't just financial. These Gulf nations host a massive US military presence that is currently highly vulnerable to the ongoing war. Because they host these American bases, these nations have been targeted by Iranian forces throughout the conflict. Formally allying with Israel might offer a unified defensive shield, but it also creates a permanent target for Iranian retaliation. Integrating Iran into this security architecture would require rewriting the defense grid that has governed the Middle East for half a century. Trump's demand forces a dismantling of the military alliances that have supported these governments for decades. In Jerusalem, officials are weighing whether this ultimatum is a trap. They fear the proposed 60-day ceasefire gives Iran the time it needs to rebuild its nuclear and missile programs without making any real concessions. Trump's all-or-nothing strategy risks collapsing the fragile ceasefire entirely if the regional players refuse to accept forced normalization with Israel. The outcome will be either a unified world coalition or a return to the battlefront that the US president warns will be bigger and stronger than before. The 60-day ceasefire is conditional on the success of these negotiations. If the accords are rejected, the truce collapses and the region faces an immediate return to open naval combat and missile exchanges. While the Middle East navigates this volatility, external superpowers are positioning themselves to fill the resulting vacuum. As the United States bets everything on this high-risk ultimatum, China is watching closely from the east, preparing its next move. Global rivals could capitalize on the chaos if the US fails to force this agreement through. The eventual winner of this crisis is likely observing from the sidelines, preparing to fill the vacuum if the American-led ultimatum fails. Will China succeed in stabilizing the Middle East in the next 12 months? Let us know your prediction below.